And just plain right. Well, welcome to Tuesday. It doesn't feel like it, but it's Tuesday. I mean, I feel like it should be Monday, but with a dose of Friday attached to it. I don't know what's happening. It's Tuesday though, and we got a name for that. Taco Tuesday. Play it.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday.
We actually had tacos last night. What am I going to do now? I don't know. This week is just jumbled up. JP's on the board. Hey, man, how are you?
I'm good. I actually had my finger on the Meatloaf Monday button and then realized that I go, yeah.
I've never come over there and looked at your side. Are there actually buttons that say Meatloaf Monday and Taco Tuesday?
There's a Meatloaf Monday button with a meatloaf, Taco Tuesday with tacos, Hump Day with a camel. Yeah.
The buttons are labeled that way.
Yeah, they are, yeah. I can't take credit for those, though. I think that was either Big Rig or Boom or one of the ones before my predecessors.
Your predecessors set you up for success.
Yes.
But you still have to push them.
Thank
you very much.
I have to push them.
All right. Hey, we got a great show laid on for you. No guests today. That's intentional because the topics that we're going to deal with are pretty in-depth. And I feel like there was necessary time for us to be able to unpack, if you will. So we're gonna jump on into some topics. It's a triple dipper. It's filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, peace through strength. Peace through strength. I love that phrase. When Ronald Reagan coined that phrase, I don't know if he knew the indelible marker he was placing on foreign policy, military policy, domestic policy for time immemorial. That is still a phrase that resonates. Peace through strength. And we're going to talk about what does it mean for the U.S. military. All you green suiters out there, all you folks that work in the defense industry, all you folks that have family members or have served yourself, you're going to want to hear this because I'm going to tell you some of the developmental, organizational, and long-term effects that we're going to see being implemented for peace through strength. That's number 1, triple dipper. Number 2, I felt like it was appropriate to take that peace through strength and then dive into the next one, which is to make you aware that there are indeed wars and rumors of wars. Scriptural reference there, wars and rumors of wars, but they are. It is not a restful world. It is not a world filled up with peace right now. In fact, I don't think it's going to be until Jesus comes back. But the reality is there are wars and rumors of wars. Be aware of what they are. Know the times that we're in and know what we have to do to deter them. That's number 2 on the triple dipper. And then number 3, I don't know if you've seen it, But there are some things that are being investigated finally. Like, I don't know, whose bag of cocaine was that in the White House? Well, guess what? We now know that the Trump administration has opened actual investigations into these matters that were left sort of unresolved, like, oh, cocaine in the White House. Nothing to see here. Well, there is something to see here. And I've got several of those open-ended non-investigations to look at. And this dipper is just called We Want to Know, with an exclamation point. We want to know. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into the Right Side Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys that Stan McDonald, the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, Stan McDonald, a 30-year veteran of the practice of law, is indeed the daily sponsor of the Right Side Way. And I'll tell you more about Stan McDonald here in just a few minutes. So let me just start by saying yesterday was indeed Memorial Day, a day that we remember the lives of those men and women who gave the full measure of themselves in defense of our nation. And I would love to believe that their sacrifices were the last we would ever need, but given the state of the world, I would say that's not likely. Until the day that Jesus returns, we are assured that in this world we will have trouble. But we're also told to fear not, for he has overcome the world. But if we're to be his vessels, his servants, then we must find our calling. And for some, that calling has been in uniform, at least for a time. See, the world's not a steady place. Like I said a minute ago, there are wars and rumors of wars. We are engaged in some hostile situations, but we are not currently at war as a nation. But if we think for a minute that there will never be another time of war, then we're living in la la land. But this past weekend, I made several appearances on national news broadcasts to discuss the latest efforts by the Trump administration to build America's military back to a place where we can once again use the phrase peace through strength. It is long overdue. In fact, if I had to put a title on this particular monologue, I'd call it Peace Through Strength again. But let me suggest to you, by the way, that peace is actually an active word. It's a verb. More than it's a noun. Peace can be a noun, a person, place, or thing, but in the sense of making peace, it pretty much has to be a verb. Think about that. So in the English language, peace is a noun. Sometimes it's an adjective. Peace is in English is a thing. It's a descriptive term, but can peace be actually a verb? You see, can peace be an action word? Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. Colt Firearms developed a world-class pistol, called it the Peacemaker. One version is a noun, one's an adjective. Is it possible, though, for nations to make peace treaties? Yeah, it is possible for a person to have peace or to know peace or to seek out a peaceful moment in a busy schedule. But here's my question for you now. Can you actually do peace? Can peace be an action? In the English language, the answer is apparently no. But if you go back to scripture in Matthew, when Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, one study I read said the original Greek translation did not have a Greek word to pull from, and so they had to rely instead on Hebrew tradition. And because in Hebrew, peace can also be a verb, in that language, the answer to my question is yes. It is possible to do peace. In Hebrew, peace can be an action. Now, it almost sounds like an oxymoron, like we're taking opposites and making them attract. But the idea of peace in the English language sounds kind of calm, right? But the idea of peace in Hebrew is just the period between conflicts. It's a brief respite in an otherwise chaotic world in which we catch our breath, keep doing all that's necessary to preserve the peace while also preparing for war. As George Washington said in his first annual address to Congress, to be prepared for war is the most effectual means of preserving the peace. I believe it was a verb tense version of peace that Ronald Reagan intended when he pressed the idea of peace through strength. Reagan believed that the best time to prepare for conflict was when there was no conflict. That by doing so, our enemies would then see us as too big of an obstacle and therefore avoid conflict. And by doing so, we would have more peace. In effect, Reagan believed in the idea of doing peace. Think about that. Not just being at peace, but actually doing peace. The Biden administration believed in appeasement and containment. Give the bad guys something, hope they'll stay in their lane. But let's be clear about something. Appeasement of bad men does not make them good. Appeasement of evil does not make it less evil. All it does is keep it at bay for a little while. If someone is determined to commit atrocities, they should not be given leave to do so. And honestly, appeasement only works if you're the strongest one in the discussion. No one feels the need to appease the weak, right? That's why we must return to the place that we press for peace through strength. Little history for you. On September 30th, 1938, exactly 86 years ago-ish, the Munich Agreement was signed. The Munich Agreement. Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini. They signed the agreement with the President of France and the Prime Minister of England. Britain's Prime Minister at the time was Neville Chamberlain, who returned to Great Britain and announced that he had helped to achieve peace in our time. The agreement was that France and Great Britain would stand by and say nothing and then allow Germany to annex a huge swath of Czechoslovakia. They gave Hitler exactly what he wanted. They appeased his thirst for power and territory. They did it for the promise of peace. But exactly 1 year later, Nazi Germany invaded Poland and catapulted the world into the most costly and devastating war in human history. So how'd that appeasement work out? Not so well. Neville Chamberlain was trying to be at peace, but instead the world would have been a better place if he had just decided to do peace. Peace is certainly possible. Peace should always be the desired goal. But the means to reach that goal will never be found in weakness. The goal is peace, but the means is by strength. Come to the table, discuss peace, but hold the biggest stick at the table and you're going to get more done. Speaking at the Republican convention in 1980, Ronald Reagan said, here's his quote, "We know only too well that war comes not when the forces of freedom are strong, but when they are weak. It is then that tyrants are tempted," he said. Reagan's foreign policy became known as the Reagan Doctrine. It was a support of freedom for all people around the world, his commitment to the idea of peace through strength. It led to the modernization of our military forces. And during Reagan's administration, the size of the U.S. Army grew by 2 active divisions. It saw the development of new weapon systems. Reagan's belief was his policy of strengthening the U.S. military would not only contain communism, but would actually defeat it. And he was right. Within a few short years, the Soviet Union fell. And the 80s became a resurgent era for the U.S. economy, for U.S. foreign policy, for our standing on the world stage. The world recognized then that the United States was not in the business of appeasement anymore. Jimmy Carter was gone, Reagan was here, peace through strength was the way. I don't believe the same could be said for the U.S. position during the Biden era. No. At every turn, the Biden administration worked to weaken our position on national security, foreign policy, military capability, border security, economic well-being. Things happened around us that should never have been allowed to happen. But we are now moving back to an era in which we will operate from a position of strength. We operate once again as a nation that means what it says and says what it means, not under the fallible cloak of appeasement. We can be your best friend, or you can wish you'd never heard of us. Again, I believe it was the verb tense version of peace that Ronald Reagan intended when he pressed the idea of peace through strength. Reagan believed that the best time to prepare for conflict was, in fact, when there was no conflict, and that by doing so, our enemies would see us as too big of an obstacle, therefore they would avoid conflict with us, and by doing so, we would have more peace. Like I said before, in effect, Reagan believed in the idea of doing peace. The concept of peace through strength, too, is our surest and most effective way to promote safety and security here at home. Our enemies are growing stronger and bolder every day. Gone are the days when nations will survive because the United States engage in some feckless and reckless appeasement. We must be willing to lead, guide, and direct from a position of strength if we're to remain a beacon for the world. But let me suggest to you, it is possible to both have peace and to do peace at the same time. And we have to. Don't think for a second that if you get a minute to breathe freely and relax, it means there's nothing left to do. Like I said before, consider the Hebrew term for peace. It indicates that peace may be upon you. Peace may be a thing to be grasped. Peace may be a restful moment. But peace may also be that thing you do between times of conflict. So yeah, blessed are the peacemakers. It is not an idle job to be a peacemaker, though. It is a very busy existence. And strength and preparation and forward thinking, those are the doings of peace. And by the way, peace can be restful. And you can be at peace, even when everyone around you is losing their minds, right? It's that peace that surpasses all understanding that we hear about in Philippians 4. I've got it. I know a bunch of you do as well. But even still, it does not mean we sit idle. We keep calm, we carry on. But we remember, the fact is, peace can be a verb. And the United States is about the doing of peace, not just the having of it. Peace through strength. That's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it. Peace through strength. Think about that. Can you imagine? The Hebrew word for peace indicates action. It also indicates a time between conflicts. That's the way we have to look at it. That's how you build. That's how you get ready. That's how you deter your enemies ahead of time. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, several things on the plate here. Not only do we have the Triple Dipper, I got to tell you, we may break in with some news because there is a press conference scheduled for 3 p.m. today, I believe, 3 p.m. in Auburn with U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville. My understanding is, and I've actually known this for a couple of days, is that he's going to be announcing that he is running for. I've known this longer than a few days, and put it this way. But it's kind of been embargoed on what you can and cannot say at certain times. But Will Cain from Fox News appears to have an exclusive interview with Senator Tuberville at 3 p.m. today, where he'll be announcing that he is running for governor of the state of Alabama. So that's going to be interesting, going to be dynamic. I look forward to hearing the results of it. We'll tell you more as it happens. I'll also tell you, too, a bunch of y'all are part of our Huntsville listening audience. WVNN appears to still be having technical problems due to the storm that went through last week. They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. We think they're up, but we just had one listener text in and say that the station is down. So if you're listening on WVNN out of Huntsville, we'd like to know, because we have to communicate back to the station. We're remote. We're not there with them. We have our own studio, and we send them the show. So anyway, let us know. We'll follow up with them as best we can. But you can always stream it everywhere in the world. Doesn't matter where you are in the big wide world. Go to the World Wide Web, and you can stream this show live straight out of YouTube, X, Facebook, or on our website, rightsidemedia.org. Rightsidemedia.org has all our stuff on it. I encourage you to go check it out, and we'll take it that way. We're also, oh, by the way, the storms were a heck of a thing last week. We have a part due in maybe even today for our phone system. Just be aware. We can get your texts, no problem, but the phones are still down in the studio, and we're working to repair that. The new part should be here hopefully this afternoon. What did I miss? Anybody else? Okay.
That's all of it.
Thomas from Athens says WVNN is definitely off the air.
Yeah, so I just got a text from somebody up there that they were fine until just recently. So back off the air.
Jeez. Okay. All right. Well, listen, Thomas from Athens, John from Lexington, South Carolina, thank you very much. Tell all your friends and family, go ahead and just live stream the show. Rightsidemedia.org is a great source to get it. Just go get it. John from Huntsville says,
wait, so you got to do Stan McDonald. Got about 1 minute left.
Hello, Attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. He's a daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. And yes, I almost forgot. My bad. However, I will tell you this. Not only is Stan the kind of guy that can advocate quite well for your legal needs, oh, by the way, he's been an absolute warrior in the trenches on conservative causes for years. I mean, the man's an OG right side ruffian. That being said, Stan McDonald, he can literally represent you in any local, state, and federal court. He's been there in thousands of real estate transactions for his clients over the year. I like to say if Stan McDonald is your friend, you will have no greater friend, and likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So here's the deal. You want to get in touch with him, you need a lawyer in North Alabama, Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. The phone number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue daily, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And then, oh, by the way, no representation made. The quality legal source being formed is great. The quality legal source for the lawyers. Wham!
Under the wire.
All right, now we'll take a break. Coming right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. there. You are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show, this show. I mean, it goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains that we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we get to call once again Fort Benning. And then, oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right. Once again, WVNN has notified us that for reasons unknown, their signal has gone down. That's our Huntsville affiliates. For those of y'all in the Huntsville market, we apologize in advance for things that we can't control, but they're working on it. And they'll have it back up as quick as they can. In the meantime, a lot of y'all are already listening on the live stream or watching the live stream for that matter. And we appreciate it. Tell your friends, tell your family. Don't forget, no matter where you are, like I said before, in the whole wide world, go to the World Wide Web. You can watch, listen to the show, or pick it up on podcast thereafter. Everything is there available for you at rightsidemedia.org. Speaking of which, hey, JP.
What's that?
I think we have another edition of the brand new Just Right podcast with Phil Williams coming out tonight.
I can confirm, yes.
Indeed. This one is kind of cool. So last one we did was with former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson, who is now fighting human trafficking, and it was a conversation about faith and family and freedom and all of it. But the one that comes out tonight is another long form discussion. That's what this one is designed to be. The Just Right podcast with me as the host is designed to have long form discussions so that people who are fascinating, we're finding some fascinating people for this. People that are fascinating, you get a chance to kind of go deep dive into who they are, what makes them tick, how did they become successful, what are they, how do they accomplish what they've done? Well, the guy tonight, his name's Conrad Thompson, and Conrad Thompson is an extremely successful mortgage broker. Conrad Thompson is also in the World Wrestling Hall of Fame because he is Ric Flair's son-in-law, and he stumbled into wrestling podcasting, and he's got one of the most successful wrestling podcasts in the world. And the guy is just doing incredible things with all the top names. If you're into WWF, WWE, if you want to know the inside scoop, if you want to hear what amazing collections he has of memorabilia, if you want to hear how he got into this and what it's like being Ric Flair's son-in-law, the whole thing is fascinating. Great conversation. The Just Right podcast airs tonight at 6 p.m. If you would, do me a favor, go to YouTube, find the place where it is, and just click subscribe. A lot of y'all, thousands of y'all are already on our daily email blast. The link is on there too. But yeah, the Just Right podcast with moi, Phil Williams, as your host, airs again tonight. This is the second edition. Conversation with Conrad Thompson, member of the World Wrestling Hall of Fame. Very cool. We've got folks texting in reminding us that WVNN's out. We are aware. Thank you so much. Just check it on the live stream, y'all. Check it on the live. In the meantime, the text lines stay open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Here we are. And like I said before, we got an eye on the news coming up here in about 20 minutes. It's our understanding that U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville is going to be having a special conversation at an event in Auburn with Will Cain from Fox News. And we'll be announcing that he's running for governor of the state of Alabama. This is going to be, listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm ready to have a governor who doesn't just make appearances. I'm ready to have a governor that leads, because I love Kay Ivey as a person. I've known her for a while. I served with her in Montgomery. We campaigned together. But she has not been truly leading our state for quite a while. And I am by far ready to see dynamic leadership that doesn't just show up at the ribbon cutting, doesn't just provide a video prepared statement on Memorial Day. I want to see a God-fearing gunslinger get in there as our governor, and I'm thinking Tommy Tuberville could be that guy. So we'll wait and watch, and we'll keep you apprised as the news develops. But that is apparently about to happen in the next 20 minutes ish. I guess it's got to. In fact, I'm assuming we'll see it live on TV because the Will Kane Show is where it's going to be, right?
Yep.
All right, we'll keep you posted. What'd you do for Memorial Day besides play golf? Anything?
Just hung out with the old Padre at the house. My mom and sister they're currently on a WNBA trip, so they were in Indiana to watch the Fever, and now they're on the way to New York to watch the New York Liberty play. So that's their Memorial Day trip. So me and Dad's got to hang out and play golf.
I'll be honest with you. Right now, WNBA is a trip.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's like and I hesitate to use the term, but it's a bunch of drama queens.
It is. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's spiraled out of control with some of the race baiting storylines.
How much of you think is real and how much is clickbait developed by the media?
Well, so the Ryan Clark and, RG3 thing, I think, was a personal beef that they just decided to use the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark storyline to air.
But those guys don't even play in the WNBA. They're guys. So
I think a lot of it is just, and mainly from ESPN, everything's got to be about race. So I think that's just who they are. Everything's got to be racist in some form or fashion. So I think they're just jumping at the opportunity to continue doing that.
So Brittany Griner, Caitlin Clark, that whole thing, Angel Reese,
yeah,
that's all real.
I think it's real. It may be played up by the media a little bit, but I think there's some underlying, authentic nature to it between the players. But
they got to get that under control. Mm-hmm. And they even here we are 5 years later, and at one of the games, was it Brittany Griner that held a moment of silence for George Floyd? I mean, come on. You're 5 years removed from a guy who was not a saint, and who unfortunately died and became the catalyst for rioting and social mayhem, and they hold a moment of silence. Did any other sports event anywhere in the world hold a moment of silence for George Floyd yesterday?
No, don't think so. But you did know this past Memorial Day weekend was apparently for George Floyd, not the veterans, according to who was it that said that? Hillary Clinton. I think it was Hillary Clinton I think Hillary Clinton put out a tweet saying to remember George Floyd this weekend. So
okay. Well, how about no? And how about she's no longer relevant anyway?
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what, speaking of tweets, so where is it? I've got it in here somewhere. So I don't know if you saw Donald Trump had his own, Donald Trump had his mean tweet. And it was legit, man. Apparently he woke up in the morning and hadn't had his coffee yet and decided to send out some, and I you know what? I looked at it and go, wow, okay. But listen, the fact is nothing he said in it was wrong. It may have been bombastic, but it wasn't wrong. So this past weekend, actually both yesterday, I was on both Newsmax and then News Nation for some, national news stories. And I knew going in what was going to happen. It was Memorial Day, and they were going to ask me about the Trump tweet. And dang if they didn't do it. So
of course,
they got
to talk about that,
especially on News Nation, which is a little bit more CNN-ish in its approach to storylines. Newsmax was very conservative. News Nation is like depends on who the host is that day.
I assume you're talking about the tweet towards Putin too.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you're not familiar, I'm in Dipper number 1, Peace Through Strength. If you're not familiar, I pulled this one off Fox News. I hold it here in my callous former paratrooper hands. Dateline yesterday. President Donald Trump, it says, issued one of his signature, and they call it spicy holiday greetings.
That's the way to put it.
Spicy. My 3-year-old granddaughter, when food is too hot, she'll sit back and go, spicy. So apparently this was a spicy holiday greeting. So yeah, Trump, Monday morning early, he sent it out. It's in all caps, by the way, which I'll be honest, my impression of anybody who sends you an email or a tweet and it's in all caps, that's the typed version of yelling.
Yep, exactly.
So Trump was yell truthing.
He was truthing.
He was yell truthing. Said, happy Memorial Day to all, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds. And it just kind of went downhill from there. He talked about illegal immigration. He talked about criminal and mentally insane people being allowed through an open border. He talked about the incompetent presidency of Biden. He talked about judges that are on a mission to keep murderers and drug dealers and rapists and gang members on our streets. And then he went on to say the Supreme Court's got to get a hold of this. And then he says, Happy Memorial Day and God bless America. And yes, I was asked about this. And I knew I would. I'm going into, especially my second interview that day was with News Nation. I'm going into the interview and I'm thinking, okay, I know what's going to happen. They're going to ask me about the mean tweet, the mean truth.
Not just, Memorial Day, remembering veterans. You got to also talk about Trump's truths.
Oh, yeah. They need to know. And by the way, I was an avowed Republican on the show, so they knew where I was coming from, but they needed to know what I thought on it. So let's do this. I'm going to take a break. When we come right back. Now that I've teased you with it, I'll tell you what I thought about Trump's, what I call it, spicy truth. Spicy! Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Spicy! And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. What did you say a minute ago? You had something.
So about 30 minutes ago, it says Tuberville actually changed his cover photo to Tommy Tuberville for governor.
Oh, no kidding!
Putting a picture of it up on the live stream here.
You got some applause soundtrack for that. I think there's a major announcement there. Okay, yeah. Did somebody post that in a story, or did you just find it on your own?
Saw Grayson Everett with a Yellowhammer posted that on Twitter. So
there you go. All right. Well, it's official. It looks like the announcement's going to be made, but that somebody went ahead and updated the cover photo ahead of time. So yeah, Tommy Tuberville running for governor of the state of Alabama. That's a dynamic that's going to send ripples through politics, not just in Alabama but elsewhere. Now here's another. I tell you what, as long as we're chasing this rabbit for a minute, I'm going to get back to my thing a minute ago about what I said on national news about Trump's mean tweet. But you and I were talking before the show, and I will affirm.
Mm-hmm.
I will affirm that on multiple occasions in sidebar conversations, JP has opined to me that he believes that at some point there is another famous coach who may want to run for a major political office. And you just saw somebody else opining the same way. What'd you see?
Well, so 1819 actually just reported this story too about 20 minutes ago or so about Bruce Pearl. There's some chatter in the GOP about Bruce Pearl running for governor. Governor, Senate, Tuberville Senate seat.
Oh, wow.
So, and like you said, I've been pontificating that for months. I see him up in DC like every other week, it seems.
Yeah.
So apparently there's some chatter behind the scenes that Bruce Pearl will be running for Tuberville's open Senate seat coming up here.
Holy cow.
That would be one heck of a, I'm telling you, this Senate seat race is going to be crazy.
I think Alabama politics are going to be crazy in general. Now, it sounds like I'm not going to be a bit surprised to see that Tuberville doesn't pretty much clear the slate, that people recognize the power of his name ID and the cash reserves he'll bring into play are not going to be able to be overcome. You're not going to have a Dean Odle coming in and trying to take the Republican nomination.
It'll be pretty much unopposed.
On the Republican side. Now, there may be a Democrat that gets on the ticket, and then you got to watch out for Dirty Pool.
Yeah.
They're going to try and say, well, we told you all along he wasn't really a resident of Alabama, and so at the last minute they'll file a lawsuit. I think that if there's a way to do it, the Tuberville group should go ahead and preempt that by getting a declaration of the court that his residency is intact. So they're not going to be surprised by it later on. But that being said, then there's all the other seats. Then there's all the state legislative seats. And then, oh, by the way, there's a brand spanking new open seat for the U.S. Senate. You're going to have an open seat for governor, an open seat for lieutenant governor, and an open seat for U.S. Senate all at the same time. No incumbents in the race. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
That never happens.
That's very rare.
That's like we're talking hen's teeth rare. Bruce Pearl, you think?
Well, apparently there's chatter. I don't know. I mean, it'd be hard to leave that highly compensated job to enter the world of politics and go to DC. But I think eventually, even if it's not now, Bruce Pearl will be a politician post-coaching career. The question is, will he do it now that there's an open Senate seat, which doesn't come around often?
Well, yeah, you have to weigh these things in terms of the open seat. I mean, that's the thing. You might want to run for the U.S. Senate, but if there's someone incumbent in there, you've got an uphill climb. Like, good luck right now dislodging Katie Britt, right? Good luck right now dislodging somebody else from another state who's serving already, because the power of the incumbency really does carry weight. And I've always said, if a Republican is going to run against another Republican incumbent, there's only two reasons why you can justify that. It's either A, hey, you're doing a bad job and I'm going to run against you, or B, you're doing a good enough job, but I just want your job.
Yeah.
That's all there really is. And so at this point, the only other option you've got is wait for an open seat. And like I said, those are rare as hen's teeth.
Well, and Bruce Pearl has been setting his son up to take the position after him for quite some time now. His son is pretty much kind of co-coach with Bruce Pearl. So I think eventually that will happen. And Chad Pruitt, the longtime assistant, actually left recently to enter the world of ministry. So, I think Steven, his son, will take the reins eventually. But, it's just open Senate doesn't come around often, so he may be striking while the iron's hot right now.
Well, he didn't win the NCAA, but he certainly had the kind of season you can retire on.
Final Four.
You're a Final Four coach. You're literally just like taking a program from being a nothing burger to being a Final Four team.
The only 2 Final Four appearances in Auburn history were from Bruce Pearl.
There you go. And he's also, by the way, I bet there's times I've noticed that even for a coach who's used to being able to say what he wants to say, I think he's been far more sort of, I don't want to say cavalier. That's not what I'm looking for. But
brave.
Open. Yeah. But there you go. Just basically willing to say whatever he wants to say.
It's one thing to make comments when asked. He's openly, talking about these stories, bringing them to the forefront. He's one of the bravest coaches in college sports.
He is. And he will say whatever he wants to say, apparently. And I gotta think that at some point, the university wishes he would kind of slow down on that.
Yeah.
I don't. I'd love it. But sounds to me like, look, Adam Mathis said what I was about to have. The words coming out of my mouth says, looks like I'm voting for 2 Auburn coaches. Gonna have to wash my hands after that. Adam, it may be good for you and JP both.
Hey, whenever they're done, they're no longer Auburn coaches, in my opinion. And if they have good policy, I'll vote for them. Shoot.
So Saban is no longer an Alabama coach, you're saying?
No, in my eyes, this is how I justify voting for Auburn coaches. They're no longer current Auburn coaches. So there you go. That's my justification.
You want to start an evil rumor? Hey, JP, did you hear Nick Saban's going to run for the open Senate seat?
Oh, gosh. That's definitely not going to happen.
No, I do not see that happening. All right, listen, I didn't even get into it. When we get back from this break, I'm going to dive right into peace through strength. All right, peace through strength. I've got some stuff you're going to want to hear, to include, by the way, a brand new ad. We're going to play it. If you're live streaming with us, good for you, because we're going to play it video and audio on our live stream. But this is a brand new recruiting ad that came out at the Coca-Cola 500 just yesterday. And it is dynamic and on point. It's exactly what you want to hear from a commander-in-chief and those who work with him to bring our military back into a place where peace through strength is actually a thing, actually real. Well, yeah, that plus I'm going to tell you, what did I say to national news when they tried to get me to ping Trump on his mean truth, his spicy truth? I didn't get to it a minute ago, so I'll get to it when we come back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 already on a Taco Tuesday. It is some more kind of a full politics weekend that has merged into a new full politics week, and it's already Tuesday, and we're seeing major stories developing. So we'll tell you when it happens, but any moment now, we expect there to be a press conference in Auburn, Alabama, accompanied by an exclusive interview with Will Cain on the Will Cain Show for Fox News. Tommy Tuberville announcing that he's going to run for governor. I did just check Tuberville's Twitter page, his X page. That has already been changed now to @CoachForGov. So it's not a secret. I mean, it seems to me they ought to make the announcement, then roll out the changes to their social media. But apparently, the social media team got in ahead of the announcement. But that's all right. That's cool.
It's kind of funny to me. National media is all pouncing on this, but I feel like this has been a well-known thing within Alabama for like
oh yeah
quite some time.
Well,
so,
and truthfully, you and I have been a part of a few conversations for the last couple of months. We've known this was coming.
Yeah,
it's kind of been embargoed on what we could say and some not say. So anyway, we'll let you know more when we see it. But right now, just be prepared. We are looking at having Coach Tommy Tuberville, U.S. Senator, running as the governor for the state of Alabama. Hey, so I'm going to get back to this dipper and I'll run with it for a minute. So I mentioned to you before the break and before our discussion about Tuberville, I mentioned to you that Trump went ahead and had what could be called a spicy holiday greeting. That's what Fox News called it, a rather spicy holiday greeting. Happy Memorial Day to all, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds. And it kind of went from there. So I got asked yesterday, I was on News Nation, did Newsmax in the morning, News Nation, and right after lunch. And I got asked about the tweet. And I knew what she was doing. The host was trying to get me to say something because she had just announced me as, being a Republican. And for commentary on this, this rather interesting tweet. Your thoughts on this, Mr. Williams?
Didn't they call you a Republican strategist?
They did.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, my response, I'd already thought this through. I knew it was going to happen. And my response was, Trump's always never been known to be the guy who minces his words, right? And some might call the tweet bombastic, but I think what you have to do is look past the words and see the actions. Because the same man who they're questioning the tweet from that morning was the one who went and spoke at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And by the way, I didn't say it this way, but nobody had to tell him where to stand. He actually knew what day of the week it was. He was able to do everything he did that day without any assistance or any fear that it wouldn't go well. My point there to the lady that was interviewing me, who, by the way, it was a great interview. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'd go back on News Nation tomorrow. But the point being made by me was it's not about the words. You can pick on that one tweet if you want to, but he just spoke at West Point and did an amazing job. And that I told her, I said, and if you look at it, you'll find that the troops' morale is through the roof right now, that recruiting is through the roof right now, that the rank and file love what they're seeing and they're getting exactly what they wanted. They wanted a leader who was going to sound like a leader. They wanted a George Patton style leader. They wanted somebody in there who will kick some tail, take some names, and train them and equip them to do exactly the same. That's what they wanted. They wanted somebody who was going to make them feel like warriors. And so anyway, that tweet or that truth or whatever we call it, that from Truth Social yesterday doesn't bother me a bit, because if that's all I had, if I had nothing else, I would go, okay, that's it. But no, I don't. It's not what I have. I have the totality of the situation, we call it. All the facts and circumstances combined to give me an image of a commander-in-chief who, in my opinion, is being a commander-in-chief. He is no longer just a figurehead like we had the last 4 years. He's not just an empty suit, a mere husk sitting in a chair with an auto pen doing all the work. We have a guy who's actually in charge and doing a freaking good job of it. Now let's talk about this. Peace through strength. I got some things we're going to go through here, but interesting piece is this story that I just picked up from a group called STARS. You may recall, some of y'all heard me say before, I'm on the National Board of Advisors for an organization called STARS. It's a group of, it's not a group, it's an organization whose members are retired military who have a focus on getting wokeness out of the military and increasing readiness. Well, Stars ran a piece by our own Alabama Congressman Barry Moore. Barry Moore's a great guy. He serves from the Wiregrass region down in, I think it's District 1 for Alabama. And he is a former member of the state house. We served together when I was in Montgomery. Barry Moore ran a piece the other day letting us know just like days ago that he has dropped in a new bill called the Readiness Over Wokeness Act. His goal is to codify President Trump's recent executive order that prohibits transgender individuals from serving in the military. So in terms of peace through strength, I think one of the things that has to be looked at here is we are getting away from wokeness. We are getting away from the military being a hotbed of social experimentation. We're getting away from the idea that the military is for anything except for defeating and deterring our nation's enemies and preserving peace on the world stage. Not just like peace for everybody, really peace for America, but when America is at peace, the world is typically more at peace. So Barry Moore, Congressman Moore from Alabama said, I introduced legislation last week to codify President Trump's executive order that prohibits transgender individuals from serving in the military. Our fighting force must remain the most lethal, effective, and focused in the world, he said. And then he went on to say this, and I agree. He said the military just has one job, to deter, fight, and win wars. Every policy we adopt must serve that objective. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Barry Moore. But I want to talk through what has happened in the last couple of days. So to give you an idea, and I've got some audio clips and video we're going to be walking through. But I would say this. I think that this Memorial Day we just had has been different than any we had in the last 4 years. I think it's because American strength is back on the world stage in a big way. So at the Tomb of the Unknown, we had Trump, Vice President Vance, and SecDef Hegseth, and I don't recall it being that way. Maybe it was. You know what? Maybe it was, now that I say that.
It was. I saw pictures.
I can picture Lloyd Austin, Kamala Harris, and yeah.
But the fact it wasn't memorial or memorable speaks volumes.
Yeah, no kidding. The only time it was memorable to me was because he had to be shown where to stand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like we've hit this new era. Everything feels different militarily. It just does. Now, some of y'all may have a different opinion. I'd love to hear it, but everything feels different in my opinion. And what we're watching right now is like the Memorial Day ceremony we just had. Trump arrived at Arlington. Like I said, he had Vance and Hegseth with him. They stood in solemn silence right there at the Tomb of the Unknown. He laid a wreath. He didn't have to be told where to stand. It looked like he was there for the moment. And the national anthem, Taps, was echoing across the grounds. All three leaders stood there. And it was a very quiet, sort of a powerful moment, but then they gave their speeches. And Defense Secretary Hegseth did a great job. He's got a great way with words. He's got a very, kind of a dogmatic, like almost like a locker room coach kind of style when he speaks a lot of times. And his message was real clear. He said, freedom is not free. The only way to preserve it is through strength, and said we owe a duty to those who have fallen in the war. They have paid a debt that we can never repay. And the duty we owe these men is peace, which can only be achieved through strength. And we strive for peace, but we must prepare for war. And he went on to say, kind of like what I said in my monologue earlier, that peace is very fragile, but that it can be defended with vigilance. And then there was a moment when Vice President Vance got up and he delivered the same speech, but he also made it clear we're not looking for war. In fact, we don't want it. In fact, we shouldn't want it ever. But the fact is, we'll do it if we have to. But the reality is, what we want is to be cautious in the idea of sending our people to war. And I agree with that 100% wholeheartedly, especially having served twice in war zones. But he said that we also must be cautious sending our people to war. And secondly, we must live in a way that honors the gift that we've been given. And he went on, and I love this. He said we need to honor them with the way that we live. Like if you've been given life, go do something with it. Remember that scene from the very end of Saving Private Ryan? Earn this, is what he was told. Earn this. Meaning go do something meaningful. J.D. Vance said, if you're a husband, be the best husband you can be. If you're a mom, be the best mom you can be. If you're a citizen, be the very best citizen you can be. Strive to be the kind of nation worthy of the sacrifice of the people we honor today. And then Trump spoke. The same guy who I was questioned about 30 seconds prior in my interview on News Nation about the mean tweet, the spicy truth, gave a great speech honoring veterans, honoring those who passed and gave the greatest sacrifice. And he said this. He said, great poets have written that it's love that moves the sun and the stars. He said, but here on this sacred soil, right where we are, we're reminded it's love that moves the course of history and moves it always towards freedom. He talked about everything from Bunker Hill to Kabul, Afghanistan. And then the speech was closed with a prayer. Prayer for the families, prayer for the country, and a blessing upon our fallen heroes and our Gold Star families. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was one of those moments that felt somewhat defining. I'm not trying to be dramatic. It just felt like it was right. It felt like it was done well. And it felt like, like patriotism is back, right? It felt like peace through strength is a thing again. And then they ran an ad, which I'll tell you about when we get back from this break, because the ad is going to make some people want to sign up right away. I can guarantee you. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Oh, man. Well, listen, during the break, he just made the announcement. So we just watched on the one of the screens here in the studio. Some of y'all may have seen it as well. But we are right now, Tommy Tuberville has just announced that he will, in fact, be running for governor. Applause, if you will. But Tommy Tuberville announcing that he is going to be leaving the U.S. Senate in 18 months with the full intent of taking the governor's office here in the state of Alabama. I think this is a game changer. I really do. I can't imagine anybody else being able to get in the race right now. In fact, here's what I'm going to go ahead and predict. I'm going to predict that in the next day or so, you're going to see several people declaring for the Senate seat, getting out there early. And I think you're also going to wind up seeing several people endorse Tuberville for governor, to include, I'm going to go ahead and bet money you're going to see Will Ainsworth announcing that he will be endorsing Tommy Tuberville as opposed to running against him. We already know Will's not going to run. He said he's not going to run, but I don't think Will's going to run for the U.S. Senate either. But I think Will Ainsworth is going to be announcing that he will support Tuberville in the run for the governor's office. And then we'll see if the Democrats can even find somebody. Good luck. But I don't think they will. What I do think they'll do is try to resort to dirty tricks.
They can find somebody. They're not going to win.
No,
yeah,
they're not going to win.
They can have somebody that's a speed bump.
Yeah. I do believe that right now, am I correct that Dean Odle, the guy who ran last time also ran for governor, that he's actually in the mix again for governor this time?
Lieutenant governor.
Lieutenant governor.
He's running for lieutenant governor.
Lieutenant governor. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, that's going to be an interesting race too. All right. So that just happened. There's your news. It is fresh, like as in the last few minutes. Tommy Tuberville has officially announced at Byron's Smokehouse down yonder in Auburn, Alabama, that he and his wife have prayed through it and decided this is where they want to serve next. They want to come home. He wants to make what he considers to be his home state, in his words, ever greater. And so we're about to have a really gamey politics season here in Alabama. That's just nothing but cool. Wow. I'll tell you what, while we're just wired up, how much time have I got, JP? We got time for that?
Got about 3 minutes.
We got 3? All right, let's do this. I think that video audio I've got is like 2 minutes, isn't it? Or 1:40?
Oh, yeah, 1:40, something like that.
Here's what I want to do. I'm in this peace through strength mode right now, right? The day after he gave the speech I think about it. Trump spoke at West Point, dynamic speech. I listened to it. It was amazing. It was great. I loved the fact that he called up individual cadets and honored them individually and called out their names during the speech. I mean, he really made the people feel strong as well as the group feel strong. But then he also spoke at the Tomb of the Unknown for Memorial Day. And then they released a new ad at the Coca-Cola 500. And it is everything you'd want to see in a recruiting ad. And I'm going to play it for you right now. JP, hit it.
No more distractions. No more electric tanks. No more gender confusion. No more climate change worship. We are laser focused on our mission of warfighting.
We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. It's called peace through strength.
You look into the eyes of these young Americans who are giving up the best years of their life in a uniform to serve their nation. They are incredible.
Through our power and might, we will lead the world to peace. Our friends will respect us, our enemies will fear us, and the whole world will admire the unrivaled greatness of the United States military. We will replenish the pride of our armed forces, end the recruitment crisis.
We don't fight because we hate what's in front of us. We fight because we love what's behind us.
God bless you. God bless our armed forces. God bless our men and women serving overseas. And God bless the United States of America.
And I'll tell you what, if you weren't live streaming the video that JP had up on the screen, it is everything that should be in a recruiting video. It is everything that absolutely should make young men and women want to sign up, because you're not hearing about, Jane's little two mommies. You're not hearing about anything about, making you more sensitive or about being diverse. What you're hearing about is those things being said about peace through strength. And then every image it was showing was warriors, war fighters, jumping out of airplanes, driving fighter jets, sailing ships, and doing all the things that young men and women are told is a part of the military. I'm saying, man, we're back. We are back, baby. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. out there. You are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all want to talk about this show. Lord, this show. I'm talking about this show goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Fort Benning, yeah. And that's just the radio. That's not even including all of y'all that stream the show online every single day, catch it on podcast form, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you. This audience has been a blessing to us for a long time, and we are certainly glad to be a part of your lives on a daily basis. Thank you very much. Okay, so got a call during the break just then. JP, I told you it was going to happen, man. It's gonna be fast and furious. Tuberville just announced that he is running for governor, which means that the Tuberville Senate seat is now considered to be it's going to be an open seat. I just got a call. Stay tuned, because in about 25 minutes, if technology helps, we are going to have a call in from somebody that I think you're going to be very interested in. That is coming up at the top of hour number 3. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be a surprise addition to the show. I won't spoil it by saying who, but let's just say there's somebody who is poised to make waves, if you will. Somebody who basically has made a life of making waves. Somebody who has stared down hard times many times and has proven himself adequate to the task, if you will. So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to leave you hanging with it and just say, I think you ought to tune in at the top of the hour and see who's on the line. Our phones are out still. We got a part on order. Where is that part? Is it going to be here?
Should be here by the end of the day today.
Okay, well, that would be awesome.
Keyword should be. We're dealing with USPS here, but
right now we are scheduled to have Tommy Tuberville on the show tomorrow. We are already scheduling other people for later in the week that I think you're going to be very interested in. But it's gonna be madness. It's gonna be I tell you what, it's gonna be a target-rich environment for a conservative talk show.
To say the least.
Just saying. Especially one they know a lot of people listen to. So there's that. All right. So yeah, stay tuned. Top of the hour. We'll get back to it. Hey, let me jump on into all right. I'm in this peace through strength mode, and this you know what? This has been like a unexpected dipper / single dipper day so far.
By the way, real quick, David from Bucky's coming in and said that was a fantastic ad. That last ad we showed last segment. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't it, David? David, by the way, who actually served himself in the military. It is nice to see the military recruitment going the way it should. By the way, just so you'll know, military recruitment is through the roof right now. Like they're only maybe 2/3 of the way through the fiscal year, if that. And they are already they've already completely met their recruiting mission for the year, and that didn't happen for the last 4 years at all. And some will try to say, well, it's because Biden put some things in place. Bull crap! Biden destroyed recruiting. You cannot say for a second that Biden got to destroy recruiting and then claim credit for what happens after Trump gets elected. No. This is not the economy where things take a long time to take effect, and maybe you're living off somebody else's economic policies, which, by the way, we're not. This is absolutely a change. Now, defense.gov has a piece that came out very recently. What do the changes mean? How do we achieve peace through strength? I can talk about the Army, for instance. I mean, in the Navy, we know that they're getting back to shipbuilding, and Trump says it's going to be shipbuilding like we haven't done in forever. The Air Force is into modernization. Space Command is about to stand up. The Space Force is getting more robust. But then there's the Army, the largest of all the military branches. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sent out a memo to his senior Pentagon officials about Army transformation just about 2.5 weeks ago. And he said this. He said, the president gave us a clear mission to achieve peace through strength. And to achieve this, he said, The United States Army must prioritize defending the homeland and deterring China in the Indo-Pacific region. And deterring war, and if required, winning on the rapidly evolving battlefield requires soldiers who are physically and mentally resilient, rigorously trained, and equipped with the best technology available. All right, sounds good. I think any administration would say something like that. Actually, I take it back. I don't think the Biden administration would. They would have said, to make sure that climate change does not become the existential threat that it is, and to ensure that we have more diversity, equity, and inclusion, they would have said that. But here's the thing. What does this mean for us? All of y'all green suiters out there in our audience, all of you who listen in, who have a keen vested interest in the defense industry, or for that matter, you have service members in your family or you serve yourself. What does this mean? Well, they're going to get into literally like with a scalpel and sometimes with a hammer. They're going to get into divesting of outdated equipment. They're going to get into reducing redundancies. And that's one of the things that happens in major bureaucracies is that you wind up having siloed areas. You have like the Air Force has their version of this software and the Army has its version of that software, and the two are not compatible. That's got to go away. So resources, they say, are being reprioritized. They're improving for the Army. They're improving long-range precision fires, air and missile defense, the Golden Dome, cyber warfare, electronic warfare, and counter space. So those are the keen focuses for the 21st century. We believe that we have, apparently, the ability to win on the ground, so to speak, but where we are woefully behind right now, me talking, is in some of the 21st century capabilities that China has been investing in heavily. All right, so how do we do this? Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll came out and said that we've learned a lot by watching the conflict in Ukraine, and that would be true. While it may be unfortunate, and I hate that it's happening, the truth of the matter is it's also been a test bed. It's been a place where you can watch and go, oh, dang, that doesn't work anymore. Oh, dang, that just happened. Oh, dang, they got around it by doing what? And so Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll says, here's what we're going to do. Major focus right now. And if you're out at Redstone Arsenal, you can take pride in this. Major focus right now in unmanned systems and in counter unmanned systems. So drones and counter drone is one of the waves of the future right now. They're also looking at integrating that all the way down to the platoon level. So drone, counter drone, all the way down to the tactical level, all the way down to the maneuver companies. That's a big deal. That's the kind of capability that while there might have been some, now they're talking about making it more robust. I think you're going to wind up seeing things like squad marksman and then also squad designated counter drone. And then you're going to have other things like when we have to have a part in the field, when the tank breaks, when the armored personnel carrier needs a new track wheel, when something breaks down and you've got to get the part to get it up and moving again, how do we do that? Well, I mean, right now what they're looking at is they're going to start forcing down to the tactical level the ability to do 3D printing and what's called additive manufacturing to operational units. Can you imagine in the field, you break a track wheel, you call back to maintenance, they go to the machine, they throw a slab of steel on there, and they make you a new one and then send it forward. They're looking at modernizing what's known as the organic industrial base. What does that mean? Taking what we already do and making it better to make the stuff we need. One of which is they're saying they're going to regenerate our ammunition stockpiles to give us a full, robust stockpile because we sent so much forward to Ukraine. I mean, truthfully, the Biden administration depleted our ammunition stockpiles to dangerous levels. They're going to do more of what's called prepositioning of stocks. If there are hotbeds in the world, we're going to prepo our stocks there, and then we're going to have more rotational deployments. I'm saying a lot of things. Some of y'all may be listening to this and going, wow, Phil, I mean, you sound like I've actually worked on the Army staff. I've seen this terminology in play, but I've also been at the tactical level and the battalion command level, and I can tell you, this is the kind of stuff that's going to happen. But it's not going to happen just by thinking about it and then prioritizing climate change. It's not. It's not going to happen because you did a bunch of DEI hires. It's not going to happen because you allowed non-deployable transgenderism in the ranks. It's not going to happen because you allowed recruiting to slip to 40-year lows. It's not going to happen because you reprioritize to having electric tanks made as opposed to the best actual tank on the battlefield. And then there's downsizing, and this is gonna cause some pain. I mean, there's already people out there getting a major case of monkey butt about this. Did I say that? A major case of monkey butt about this.
You did.
It's while I'm in it, I'll say it again. Monkey butt. They got a major case of monkey butt with this. So they're actually looking at merging headquarters, and I don't mean like, you're only going to have like the command element for a battalion. No, I'm just saying there are redundant level flag officer commands like Army Futures Command, which I think is where, I don't know, I sort of think that's where merit goes to die sometimes. But Army Futures Command is now merging with Training and Doctrine Command. What's that going to do? It's going to reduce the number of major headquarters. That is one example of the fact that up on the top side of things, Secretary Hegseth, with Trump administration's guidance, is saying, you know what? Fewer generals and admirals, please. We need to scale down the level of bureaucracy in our U.S. military and get it back to a level that is designed for warfighting. Lean and mean is the phrase that we're hearing from Secretary Hegseth. So yeah, peace through strength, there's that. When we get back from this break, I'll tell you about a little bit more because I've got some announcements that came out just in recent days that are clearly indicating that peace through strength actually has some doings in it. Like we're going to do some stuff. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're getting close to the end of hour number 2. Coming up at the beginning of hour number 3, we do expect to have, I would call it a call, but it's not a call because we're having to use an electronic or an internet-based conversation. Yeah, it's called Clean Feed we use, but nonetheless, we have somebody calling in that I think is going to be very interesting. Y'all should stay tuned. Let me just say this. It comes in the wake of the fact that Tuberville just cleared the way for people to run for his Senate seat. And there is a new announcement by Tommy Tuberville. He is officially running for governor. It's official. It's the worst kept secret in all of the world, but now it's official. So that means officially other people can say and do what they want to say and do. So stand by for top of the hour. Let me jump back on the end of this this discussion I'm having right now about peace through strength. Peace through strength. Well, there's a variety of ways you do that. All right. So I mentioned the fact that there are true, like for the Army especially, I went through a litany of things that the Secretary of Defense has now authorized the Secretary of the Army to begin implementing, changing, doing differently, or even removing. And that's a big deal because I don't think you saw anything that transformative. And well, I don't know when we've seen anything that's transformative. I mean, we can go back to things that have happened over time, like the initiation of the Special Operations Command, where they consolidated special ops from all the branches. You can look at things like the establishment of brigade combat teams. You can look at there's all air-land battle doctrine. So there have been things that have happened over time that were transformative. This is like blanket transformation. And this is also designed, by the way, to try and get ahead of any future Democrat-controlled Congress or White House. And so they're doing all they can to build a very robust capacity in our U.S. military, peace through strength. One of the things they're also doing is, of course, the Golden Dome. I got a piece here for the New York Post. Came out just a few days ago. President Trump announced and named Space Force General Michael Gutlein, I think his name is Gutlein, to lead his Golden Dome project to improve and integrate America's missile defense technology. We have missile defense. We don't have what I would call an integrated dome capability. We don't have the ability to say that we have a coordinated capability that puts a dome over the United States. So we're looking at that as being one of the things. China has already bucked up on this thing. They're mad. They don't want it. But Trump is saying Canada already called and they want to be a part of it. Of course they do. So what we're looking at here is not since Star Wars have we had something that was capable of generating what you might call a weapons race. But nobody's going to be able to keep up with it. So we're looking at right now legislation pending in the big, beautiful bill that puts the first $25 billion into a Golden Dome kickoff project. And I do believe that's based on what we're hearing, that is absolutely something that needs to happen. Here's another thing. What good is it to say that you are a nation of borders if you can't control your borders? Story from military.com this past Friday. Phil, did you go to military.com? I did. I'll go to these places so you don't have to. Every once in a while, military.com gets a story right. But the Pentagon is sending an additional 1,100 troops to the U.S.-Mexico border from half a dozen units across the different services. They will join more than 8,000 who are already on active duty orders there. Spokesman for U.S. Northern Command emphasized to military.com that not all of them supporting the mission are directly on the border. Some are involved in air or maritime missions or even participating from their home station in some capacities. All right, the bottom line is this. The U.S. military has become a major piece of securing the southern border. I mean, the Customs and Border Patrol, God bless them. They did all they could do just to go to work in the morning and then go home at night for the last 4 years. But we now have ground units actual ground units. We have drone units. We have military combat engineers building barriers. We have any number of things that are now in place. And we're looking at right now, we're about to have 9,100 troops on the southern border, peace through strength. Let us not forget that while they may not be a part of the Department of Defense, that our Coast Guard, which is technically part of the Department of Homeland Security, is actually a vital component to our nation's defense. It is. Thank you to all you Coasties out there. Appreciate you. Secretary Noam, Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Noam, said, you are the finest fighting force, she said, while speaking to them at a recent Coast Guard senior leaders meeting. She said, and funding the Coast Guard is now one of my top priorities. She also said, the change that I'm asking of you is called Force Design 2028. It's our roadmap for change. It's the biggest change that will happen to the Coast Guard since 1915, she said. Wow. So basically what they're looking at is a complete redesign. They want to have far more warrior ethos, she said. We want to have the ability to project in terms of people, organization, acquisitions of weapons and systems, and increased technology. And bottom line is, she said that under her leadership, Force Design 2028 for the Coast Guard is the absolute new way forward. There's no alternative, she said. We are all in. Loving that. And then I will close with this. Peace through strength also means taking care of troops. It means taking care of our veterans. It means saying that if you will serve, we will also take care of you. And we'll do it in a way that, you'll be proud of. The VA is improving its capabilities, and it is basically improving its service, and it should. But then you've got this. People don't realize, there are times when being in the military is a major blessing and you get to think, I get to pay for this. And the other times you think, I don't pay me enough for this. And one of those is what's called a PCS move, a permanent change of station, moving from one duty station to another. And it has been just a boondoggle for the last few years. And military moving season is underway, and Secretary Pete Hegseth has said, we are making major changes to the way that we have done household goods being shipped for service members. We're going to make it better. We're going to make the PCS move less painful. God bless them. That needs to happen. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3. How'd that happen? I know where the first 2 hours went. This has been a crazy show. I mean, we've already taken breaks from what was planned in order to go with things that were happening, like not the least of which is Tommy Tuberville, U.S. Senator and former Auburn football coach, just announced he was officially running for governor. Well, somebody has just connected in with us using the Clean Feed connection since our normal phones are currently down. And I'm going to bring him on right now. So most of y'all are familiar with someone who's been on the show several times. He was actually on the podcast with us last week for the Just Right podcast. And he does a podcast of his own with us called The Liberty Minute. Jared Hudson is a former Navy SEAL. He's now the president and CEO of 2 businesses, one called Covenant Rescue Group, which focuses on human trafficking interdiction, and the other being the Shooting Institute, which focuses on training military and law enforcement in the skills necessary to do their jobs. That's enough of me talking. Jared Hudson's on the line right now. Jared Hudson, how you doing, man?
What's up, brother? I'm good. How are you? Hey, it's never enough of you talking, Phil. That's why you have the show.
I get paid to just opine for 3 hours straight.
There you go, man. Well, at least it's a good opinion.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, listen, man, Tuberville made his announcement, and then next thing I know, I'm getting a text from you saying, hey, you got time for me to get on the show today? What's on your mind, buddy?
Yeah, man. No, I just think it's, I was literally sitting here at the desk and somebody sent me something from out of state saying, hey, man, your boy Tubby's on the air, or about to go on a show and make some kind of big announcement. So I clicked over and watch, and here he's announced for governor. And that's just, exciting times for the state of Alabama. I think he's personally, I think he's done really good as a senator. We've been glad to have him in there, and I hate to see him leave. I know it's going to be big shoes for somebody to fill, but him going over to be the chief executive of the state of Alabama, I think is going to be really good. A lot of people are saying that he's only going to do one term to see what he can do, and I don't know what his proclivities are to that, but I do know this. I mean, if he does even half as good as he's done as senator, as governor, he's going to do a lot of good for this state. So I'm pretty excited about it.
I am too. And before we leave that, let me just ask this. I mean, you've been in, of course, as a former member of the teams in the SEALs, and then of course what you do with law enforcement, and you are yourself an APO certified law enforcement officer. You understand the value of strong leadership. What does this look like to you, seeing Coach Tuberville coming in running for governor right now?
Man, you know what? I'll give you a real world example. A buddy of mine, Brad Geary, had a lot going on in the SEAL teams, and it took the Senate to help him through that process. He was the commander over Buds when a young man died. It's a whole thing that everybody could look up that's listening. I won't go into the story. But we're able to get in touch with Coach Tuberville and his team. And again, that leadership at that level, Brad Geary called me 2 months later and said, man, you have no idea how impactful Senator Tuberville was, because he knew him as Senator Tuberville.
Yeah.
Again, not being from our state. And just a small example like that, you got a war fighter who's running a training command and something terrible happens, but now he's getting his feet held to the fire over something that, honestly, he had nothing to do with. And it took a strong leader to step in and say, no, you're not going to do this. We're going to push forward with supporting this leader of war fighters. And it's just the same thing as he's going to governor, having that strong leadership in places of high power, right? I mean, a senator, a governor is vitally important. And I think that's just a real world example where I've seen what Coach was doing actually work. And I think it'll continue to work.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the idea of having somebody who's both visible and vocal in the leadership position, somebody who can define the agenda, call the plays, if you will, and be able to lead from the front. I think that's going to be huge. I look at what DeSantis has done down in Florida, and I think there's no reason why Alabama can't have that. No reason at all.
Absolutely, again, I'm not one to go around and even disparage anybody else who's been in any of these leadership positions, wherever they're at. But just seeing where Coach has come from and what he did as a senator, now going over to governor, I have no doubt that he can possibly do that and maybe even more than what we've seen going in Florida and some of these other states with some really strong governors.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing about Tuberville, then I want to ask you about something else. But one of the things that really strikes me is when he was coaching, he was sometimes known the nickname Riverboat Gambler was because he was willing to call the plays that nobody else would have called. He was willing to do the thing nobody else would have expected. And I think part of that is because, the old saying, the best laid plans go out the door when the first shot's fired, right? The enemy has a vote. Well, that means you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to adjust on the run. And I've seen that in him in the past, and I'm looking for that because politics is a blood sport, and I'm looking for that in terms of what he could do and be able to pivot when he needs to.
Absolutely. No, I mean, we'd always say terrain will dictate in the SEAL teams, which just means whatever happens on the outside oftentimes dictates what you do and how you respond. And it takes a person who, like you just said, is able to pivot in order to be effective when it comes to these fights you find yourself in, whether you're in a political race or in a political position like, a senator or governor.
All right. So let me ask you something. You asked if you could call in today, Jared Hudson. And there's now an open seat officially for the U.S. Senate. And all God's children know that if you're going to be a SEAL, that means when you get out of the teams, you're either going to A, write a book, or B, run for office. So
there you go.
So are you writing a book or are you running for office? What's about to happen?
Oh, well, the funny thing when you ask that, I've actually done both, running for office here in Jefferson County as sheriff and becoming the sheriff runner up here in this large county. But then I've also written a book, although my buddies call it a pamphlet because it's only 48 pages long. So I've actually done both of those already. But no, I've had a few people ask me would I consider running for that open spot, and I never say no to anything. But me and my wife spend a lot of time seeking the Lord and praying. Again, as a believer, my belief system, and anybody who wants to hear about it probably will hear it on the podcast that me and you did a couple months ago. But honestly, whatever the Lord has, I'm willing to step into. I rule nothing out, but we have to pray through things, and I definitely consider it. But I can tell you this much: whoever fills the role that coach is leaving, they're going to have big shoes to fill. I think we know that, number one. And number two, it's got to be a fighter. It's got to be somebody who can give the Democrats a nosebleed. It's got to be somebody who takes the initiative of the people of Alabama to Washington, D.C., as opposed to the initiative of Washington, D.C. back to Alabama.
Well, and you're being very humble and you're couching your terms carefully. And I understand that until the decision is made, it's not made. And I appreciate the fact that you and your sweet wife are praying through this thing. I will say this. I'm going to correct one thing you said, though. You called yourself the runner-up sheriff. Actually, you were the Republican choice in a very blue
There you go. That's right.
In a blue county. Listen, I think the world needs to hear this. In a blue county, you ran against a long-time entrenched incumbency of Democrats in that sheriff seat, and you came within 1 point of literally taking it away from them as the Republican choice. Because I think there are a lot of people that swung over to vote for you. And if you can do that in a blue county, I would just say that you could have some opportunities elsewhere.
Maybe so. We'll see what the Lord has, and but in the meantime, we're still going to hunt these bad guys that like buying and selling kids for sex. So that's what we're going to continue to focus on right now.
And rightfully so, brother. Rightfully so. Listen, if folks want to hear more about what you're praying and thinking about, where can they go and when can they go there?
Yeah, I mean, you could go to any of my personal sites. Go to thejaredhudson.com. That's where people will engage me to speak at different events. And you can follow the social media platforms there. There's Twitter or X, I guess is what it's called now, Instagram, and Facebook, and they can just click and follow there. So thejaredhudson.com, and then also still go to covenantrescue.org and keep up with what we're doing there in the fight against human trafficking.
All right, Frogman. Rangers lead the way, but SEALs do stuff.
Rangers lead the way, baby.
All right, man. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, brother. Thank you.
He's doing something, man. He's doing something. JP. He's doing something.
I think so, and I'd like that. I think he'd be a great choice for that.
I think he would. So if y'all haven't seen it, by the way, now that you've heard Jared Hudson saying that could happen, I think all the more reason for you to go check he hunts down human traffickers. Nothing but cool. All right, man, take me to a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, pulling pins on truth grenades. Hey, I got to tell you guys, so you might want to go check out the website, rightsidemedia.org. Rightsidemedia.org. That's us, right? So the Rightside Radio show that a lot of y'all are listening to right now, whether it be via radio or streaming online, Rightside Radio is only one production of the company, parent company, Rightside Media. We do a ton of stuff. I mean, it's something like every 5 minutes. All our social media is pretty gamey. You got any number of podcasts right now. We've got multiple podcast lines going, including tonight, the second edition of the brand new Just Right podcast with me, Phil Williams, interviewing what I call some of the most fascinating people you'll ever find. So crazy thing is, the one that came out last week was the guy who just called in a moment ago, former Navy SEAL and now human trafficker hunter, Jared Hudson. We did a great deep dive with him. I mean, it's a long conversation about faith and family and freedom and all of it. Well, tonight, the next edition of the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams comes out. And tonight is with a guy named Conrad Thompson. Now, some of y'all are already going to know who that is, because if you're a WWF, WWE fan, if you're into the raw battles, if you've been watching professional wrestling for a while, then you probably already know about Conrad Thompson. Conrad Thompson is a mortgage broker. What? Yes, he's a mortgage broker who happens to also be Ric Flair's son-in-law, who happens to also have stumbled into podcasting world wrestling. I mean, like an amazingly successful. He is now considered one of the voices of professional wrestling. So much so that a couple of years ago, he was actually inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. What? Yes. And it's a fascinating conversation. You're gonna hear from a guy who, when you hear him talk, you'll go, dang, he's got it going on. And dang, what a work ethic. And dang, what a testimony. So I encourage you, check it out. It comes out at 6 p.m. tonight. You can find it on our YouTube channel. We'll have all kinds of postings coming out on our social media. You can definitely find it at our rightsidemedia.org website. The Just Right podcast with me, Phil Williams, and then all of our other stuff too. So check it out. By the way, is the promo code still going? I should know. I have to ask this. I only run the company.
I'm not 100% sure.
I believe it is. So I'm going to say it is. So if you go to our Rightside merchandise shop on the rightsidemedia.org website, there's a place where you can get T-shirts, hats, coffee mugs. We got a few more. We just had to order a new stock of them. A few more of what we call our bin shot highball glasses. They have an embedded bullet in the side of the glass with the engraved logo of Rightside Media. The promo code is Just Right in honor of our new podcast. Promo code Just Right will actually get you a 10% discount on any merchandise. Just check it out. Rightsidemedia.org. That was a long, shameless plug, but it was all good stuff.
All good stuff.
All good stuff. And I'm gonna spend just a minute here. I got a few. In fact, we've talked so much about peace through strength. Let me just say this. My number 2 dipper is called Wars and Rumors of Wars. And so I think I'll scale that down a little bit and just say there's a few things that I need to make sure you guys are hearing. Because as we look at the world around us, we have to recognize why it's so important that we have a military that is capable of producing peace through strength. Because there are bad actors on the world stage, there are near-peer adversaries, there are non-nation states, entities that wish to do us harm simply because we exist. Look at 9/11, simply because we exist. And yet some of what we're seeing right now are true wars and rumors of wars. One of the things I want you guys to hear is the peace negotiations with Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky for Russia, Ukraine. The Trump administration is absolutely smack in the middle as a mediator, doing all they can right now to get these people to stay at the table. And yet Putin most recently has ramped up his aggression, bombing and sending missiles into civilian strongholds, not force on force, not taking out troop movements. He's literally just bombing neighborhoods and homes and schools. Like a lot. Trump is ticked. Here's my thinking on this. In my perception, what you're seeing here is, I've said it before, the acronym DIME: diplomacy, intelligence, military, economics. Those are the four aspects of what it takes to project foreign policy power on the world stage. All four of those are weighing hard on Putin right now. Hard. I see this as him lashing out. I think what we're watching here is a Putin that wants the world to know that he's still got it when he doesn't have it. Doesn't mean he's not dangerous. It doesn't mean he's not like the wildcat backed into a corner. But I think what we're seeing with Putin is exactly that. He is pushing back so the world will know that he's still the Russian bear. But I think he's also doing it in part because he feels the pressure, and he wants to be seen as going out as the strong man. If you look at, who posts pictures of themselves riding bareback on a horse, and you're the leader of a nation? Putin does. He wants to be seen as the strong man at all times. This is his way of saying, I can negotiate, but I will also bomb you when I feel like it. That's what he's trying to do. He's doing it because he's feeling the pressure that comes from the United States using all of the diplomacy, intelligence, military, and economic power that we have to keep him at the table. Zelensky, at the same time, is doing all he can do, but Zelensky doesn't have the endless checkbook anymore because we finally curtailed that, thank goodness. But what we're watching right now is a very dynamic, not static, but a dynamic mediation effort. That being said, peacefrommilitary.com, Dateline last night, Russian forces have now taken 4 border villages to create a buffer zone on the eastern rim of Ukraine. I'll come right back, give you a few more. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show right here. I mean to say it goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across from the border from there to Fort Benning. Now we call it Fort Benning. Yes, we do. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right. I got to tell you, too, that's just the radio audience. Thank you to all of y'all who also stream online and who join us by podcasting after the fact. We love you. We appreciate this audience more than you could possibly know. We also appreciate the fact that a lot of y'all are sticking with us because last week's storms have just disrupted all kinds of stuff. I mean, jacked some things up. And the folks up at WVNN, our Cumulus Broadcasting affiliate out of the Huntsville market, is doing all they can do right now. They're in be all they can be mode, trying to get that station fully back up and operational. But if you don't know, the station house where the towers and all of it are is actually multiple radio stations in one building. I mean, you got the UMP, you got all of them, and WVNN, they're all there. And that whole building got fried. Am I right in saying that? The whole building got fried?
Pretty much, yeah.
Shame my netty. Anyway, days that I'm glad that we have our own separate studio for Right Side.
Yep.
But we also had our phones fried. So I can feel a little bit of the pain. We have a part that should be here maybe today. But the reality is we'll get our phones back up and running, get you guys calling back in. And then WVNN is doing all I can out of the Huntsville market to get it back on. We're still glad that we're on with y'all in the Auburn market and in the Chattanooga market. And that means all of those other places I named a moment ago. Glad of it. So a moment ago, I said that we're watching right now wars and rumors of wars. We're watching right now as America is serving as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. When I was this past weekend, when I was on, I forget if it was Newsmax or News Nation, but I was on a national interview, and I pointed out that in regards to Putin lashing out, that one of the other things that happens right now, because the woman who was it was News Nation, the woman who was interviewing me, she said, now Trump did say he would have this done in one day, and she kind of gave me the look, and I said, well, I will go ahead and say that as a practicing attorney, which is another part of my resume I pointed out, is that we are watching a mediation. Trump is the mediator, and I've never seen a mediation where everyone comes out of the room feeling like they got everything they wanted. A mediation is where you go in, no one comes out completely happy, but they come out resolved. And that's the goal here. Ukraine's not going to get everything, I imagine. It lost a lot of people. It's lost a lot of blood and treasure. Russia is certainly not going to get Ukraine. That's not going to happen. They might as well quit saying they're going to get Ukraine. But right now, Trump's the mediator in the middle, trying to cajole and force both sides to see the weaknesses and strengths of their arguments and to come to some resolution. Russia took 4 villages overnight along the eastern rim of Ukraine, creating what Putin called a buffer zone. I don't know that it really is. In today's modern warfare, a buffer zone better be more like 100 miles. But in terms of having, some ground they took it. They took 4 more villages. Donald Trump has now called out Putin, story that broke just a little while ago on Fox News. I'm staring at it. I don't have it in paper, but I'm looking at it on the screen. Trump said, Vladimir Putin doesn't realize if it weren't for me, a lot of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. And I mean, really bad. He said he's playing with fire. I don't know what that means. The world doesn't know what that means. But what we do know is Trump is saying Putin needs to back off because I'm keeping the world from doing more than they're already doing. Dmitry Medvedev, which is the deputy chairman of the Security Council for Russia, Medvedev came back and said this. He said, regarding Trump's words about Putin playing with fire and really bad things happening to Russia, he said, I only know of one really bad thing, World War III. I hope Trump understands this. That's about as blatant a rebuttal as you can get. Trump is doing all he can to not just flat out alienate Russia and yet keep them at the table. In the meantime, you got this. Fox News, Dateline today. Germany's chancellor ends the weapon range limits for Ukraine despite Russian nuclear threats. What does this mean? Friedrich Merz, which is the German's new chancellor, he said that they have lifted all range restrictions on the weapons they gave to Ukraine. So it's one of those weird things where, hey, we'll give you a gun, but we will tell you when you're allowed to shoot it. That's a pretty weird dynamic. But what they're saying is long-range missiles have been given to Ukraine, and Germany said, you can have them for tactical defense, but we do not want you launching them into Russia proper. They just lifted that. Merritt said the range restrictions on weapons that have been delivered to Ukraine would also include those that were delivered by the British, the French, and America. This means Ukraine can also defend itself by, for example, it said, attacking military positions in Russia. Until a while ago, Merritt said it couldn't. It can now. Listen, it's not getting better right now. It's heating up. Be aware. Be very aware. This is happening right now. In the meantime, you got the Middle East. Okay, you got the Middle East. But yeah, Trump is doing what Fox News calls a gamble with Syria. I don't know if you're aware of this, but ain't nobody been talking to Syria in years. Syria, Bashar al-Assad, has been overthrown. That was last year. Assad has been overthrown, and the people who overthrow him are not good people. It's a weird deal. I will point out that as the Bashar al-Assad regime fell, it was replaced by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, otherwise known as HTS, which is a former al-Qaeda affiliate. Okay, is this a case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Not necessarily, because Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is a pretty strident Islamic fundamentalist organization. But I'm mindful of the fact that while he was never truly a good guy, that Yasser Arafat, the former head of the PLO, became a de facto political leader at some point. I can look back and I can find examples in Northern Ireland where the Irish Republican Army, Sinn Féin, which was their political wing, became an actual political organization. Were they extreme? Yeah. But they were moderated by the fact that they chose to become political leaders. I don't know if that's what we've got right now. I don't think anybody really knows that's what we got right now. What I think is happening in the Middle East with Syria right now is Trump is doing all he can to make sure that China and Russia don't get the upper hand with the new Syrian regime. If you'll look at it right now, we're trying to isolate Russia. If you look at the western edge of Syria, you'll find a warm water port that is actually still under lease to Russia right now. That's their entrance into the warm waters. They want it for their Navy. They use it for their submarines to dock. And they need to keep it in order to have force projection that gets them out of the cold waters of the Baltics. I'm just telling you, what we're watching right now is Trump doing all he can to make sure that this new Syrian regime recognizes that we'll talk to you, unlike anybody else before me. I'll talk to you. But what it reminds me of is General Mattis. You remember this? General Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis. I know he fell out of favor with Trump, but the man who could lead troops. When he was a leader in Iraq, he was soon to redeploy, and most of his Marines had already sent their artillery pieces back when all of a sudden you had a major uprising. And he's near Fallujah. And he went to the tribal leaders. He literally called for a key leader engagement. And he went to the tribal leaders, and this is allegedly exactly what he said. And I won't use some of the language, but I can't because I'm on the radio. But he literally looked at the tribal leaders in the Fallujah region, and he told them, he said, my Marines have no gun tubes, and you know that. And I'm coming to you right now, he said, with open hands and open hearts, and I'm begging you, don't make me have to do it. We can work together. And then he said, but so help me God, if you do something to my Marines, I will kill you all. And guess what? They didn't do anything. And that's kind of what's happening right now with Trump and Syria. The Bashar al-Assad regime is gone. They're gone. And oh, by the way, guess where he's hanging out? Assad is hanging out in Russia now. That's where he lives. Assad and his family escaped to Russia, and they're living in a dacha somewhere on a lake. I'm sure they're comfortable. And they're working the phones, trying to see what they can bring subterfuge to bear in their former grounds near Damascus. But right now, you got Tahrir al-Sham, a former al-Qaeda affiliate, in charge. Who do we want talking to them? China, Iran, Russia, or would you rather have us talking to them? And right now, what Trump is doing is he's working the phones, and he actually met with the guy in person. He met with the leader of HTS in person. And the only reason why he did that was to make sure that they knew, I'll talk to you, but so help me God. It was that kind of meeting. I'll talk to you. Let's talk. Can we talk? Yeah, great. But so help me God. All right. That's what it's like having somebody on the world stage who's willing to project peace through strength. And it's an amazing new day in all of it. It's been a great show, by the way. We're going to come back from the break here momentarily, and I'll wrap up. I got a few text messages, but of course, being in a different mode right now, some of y'all don't realize the text lines are definitely still open. Text it, call it, can't call it. Text it, 833-687-4448. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, we are almost there. It's about go home time right now. Many of y'all are already grabbing the keys and heading for the car. I will just tell you right now that tomorrow at 2:30, that's 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 for our Chattanooga audience. Tomorrow, we're going to have U.S. Senator, now Governor candidate Tommy Tuberville on the show. So that's scheduled to happen tomorrow. I'll also tell you, just a reminder, that you've also got a brand spanking new podcast, which has been a hit with the audience so far. We appreciate the fact that we got a bunch of y'all that have tuned in to see all and or some of the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams. Last week's edition was with Jared Hudson, who actually called to the show a little while ago, former Navy SEAL who now hunts human traffickers. Well, tonight's edition comes out with a guy named Conrad Thompson being the point of discussion. Conrad Thompson is a crazy kind of cool story. Dude's a mortgage broker. Dude's also married to Ric Flair's daughter. So dude is now also, by the way, a wrestling podcaster who has become so prolific in the world of wrestling that he's just inducted into the Wrestling Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. So we'll have a great conversation coming out at 6 o'clock tonight. You can pick it up on all of our YouTube, our X, our Facebook, all of it. Oh, by the way, at our website, rightside.media.org. So yeah, the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams, round 2 coming out tonight. Okay. I am hopeful, by the way, that WVNN is going to have itself kind of back online here shortly, but they have been able to stream our YouTube, so that's great, and we're glad of it. In the meantime, a few of y'all are checking in. I will say this before I close out the show with some comments on politics: is John from Huntsville checking in, has the grades. John is still out there. That's good. It's been a very quiet day on the texters.
Well, he's been going back and forth with some liberals on the YouTube stream.
Has he really?
Yeah, I did. We had the Tuberville announcement. Jared came on, but I have just kind of caught my eye. He's been going back and forth with some folks here. So.
Has he? I did not know this.
Yeah.
Well, then hang on a second. I think we need to reverse the grades and give them to John.
Yeah, I agree.
John wins for duking it out with the libs. Thank you, John. John has the grades, though. He says today's winner is obviously he calls me the magnet. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Magnificent Phil Williams with a spectacular A++, because I was honored that you were going to read my text before the Stan McDonald lawyer bit. He said, congratulations. You were absolutely amazing. By the way, JP gets a D- for blocking the reading of my text.
Listen,
wow.
We got to get advertisements in.
Wow.
We only had a minute left. Let me just say, John doesn't pay us to read his text. I'll just say that. Okay. It's a priorities here.
But he is part of the fabric of the show.
He is, but, still.
There's that. What else do we got here? Great. Chris from Starrett, Alabama says, great minds thinking alike, listening on a delay. So I was a little late to the game. You're good, man. Got you. And he wants to know, is Jared going to announce his bid for the Senate seat? His bid, I'm sure he means, for the Senate seat. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. So if you missed it, we had live breaking news earlier in the show at roughly 3:15-ish Central Time today. U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville, former Auburn coach and basically, just a longtime name in the SEC and really beyond the SEC, because where he coached at Cincinnati and Texas Tech and yeah. Anyway, he announced his bid for governor for the state of Alabama today. Big, hairy deal. It's going to wind up being a huge event in the politics of Alabama and really nationally. Because what that means is not only do we have a strong personality that is probably going to clear the field as of now for the governor's race in the state of Alabama, but it leaves open a U.S. Senate seat, and open Senate seats are rare as hen's teeth. I mean, they just are. Once someone becomes an incumbent for a 6-year term Senate seat, you can imagine it's going to be at least 6 years or more before that seat is ever considered open again, unless something happens to the person. So we now have an open Senate seat. You saw something a minute ago, again, JP, about the Bruce Pearl.
Well, so what was rumors earlier today, and my pontifications for like months, because I see Bruce Pearl at the Capitol.
It's true. I can confirm.
I think Bruce Pearl's at the Capitol like every other week. And it was around the same time that rumors were coming out about Tuberville running for governor. So the timing seemed a little convenient. But On3, which is a big sports, news outlet. They cover a lot of recruiting stuff and so forth. I mean, they even put up a tweet talking about this, about rumors circulating that Bruce is going to run for Tuberville Senate seat. And if pages like On3 are tweeting about it, then I would say they're pretty legit rumors.
Really?
And if there's GOP chatter going around, I don't know. It feels legit to me. If 1819's talking about it, On3's talking about it. If you got sports outlets covering it, then I feel like it's pretty legit, in my opinion.
That's crazy talk, man. All right, so wouldn't that be crazy if we had 2 former Auburn coaches in major positions of leadership in the politics of our state? But then there's the other speculation, because the dude that called in today called in to congratulate Coach Tuberville. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, by the way, that seems like a little something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Jared Hudson, former Navy SEAL, I think is prayerfully speculating on the idea of running for the U.S. Senate. And I jokingly said to him, we all know that what SEALs do when they get out of the teams now is they either write a book or they go into politics.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much a given.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting about this is there's been rumors that Steve Marshall's going to run. I don't think he's officially said anything, but there's been rumors of that. And he's a longtime politician. But rumors about Jared Hudson, who just called in, like you said, Bruce Pearl. Those are 2 complete political outsiders from this. So it's interesting that we got 2 guys potentially throwing their name in there that are political outsiders. And do they get sort of is that an advantage in some ways over a, somebody who's a career politician? I'm sure Doug Jones will probably, because Doug Jones is dying to be relevant again. So he'll probably run for the Senate seat himself as a Democrat. But I find that interesting. We have, 2 potential political outsiders, in this race.
I think right now, unless Terry Sewell or Shamari